Okay, Chris, we're in Broadridge's studio in the center of Manhattan, in the epicenter of the financial services world in New York, which feels like the perfect setting for us to step into your world for a moment. You've had an incredible career across banking, brokerage, financial information systems, which you brought into Broadridge over a decade ago to lead growth strategy and international expansion. But before we get a pulse from you on the industry, where you see things going, where Broadridge is going in the future, I'd love to first start with the person sitting in front of me today and get some early context or environment that really set you on course for the incredible career that you've had so far.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for coming into our
Absolutely.
house and joining us here today. We really adore our partnership with your organization and what you've done to help our company grow through a fabulous learning development programs. Me, I'm just a person who has been really committed to serve the people that I work with and help lift them. I've always had an ethos that says if you help the people around you be successful, you'll be successful. And that comes from my very earliest days. In fact, my soccer or, European football coach in high school, where I was the 12th player, I didn't really start, but I got put in and I had a little thing in the beginning of the game where I would do a horseyback ride, which I think translates worldwide, with the best player on our team because we were buds. And we had this thing that just created a little esprit de corps. And so I think for me, I've always been about team, helping others. That began the beginnings of my career. I think the part as I got further along in my career and began to take on more responsibility was a real element of authenticity. Like I try to do what I say I'm going to do. I talk to you about doing this, and here we are, and I'm excited to have the conversation. So I think it's a little bit about teammanship, authenticity, doing what you say you're going to do, and delivering and making sure that you are a bit selfless in that, at the same time being self-aware. So it's a bunch of ingredients that shaped me over the years. I was certainly not the best student by any means, but I never left a minute without being on the field and being part of something. I remember I got an award in about 5th or 6th grade for perfect attendance for 3 years in a row, and it gave me tickets to the local baseball. I'm a Chicago Cubs fan growing up in Chicago. I was like, "Wow, I got to get tickets." That was the only way I was gonna go to the game was perfect attendance.
Wow.
And, it was boring to stay home and be sick, so you try not to be sick, and that's carried on. I've not had a sick day in, like, 35 years, so I've been sick, and I probably got other people sick, but, like, you gotta get up and make the call. So,
Yeah.
those are just things from my upbringing that have applied in my life, and then learning from people around me who were really good at things, finding role models. So, there's a bunch of ingredients that are perpetual,
Yeah.
with a 40-year career now, which is crazy to admit. It's perpetual learning from people and going, "Well, I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. I'm not." So it's really easy for me to not have to pretend to be and be I don't have to think of everything. I love when somebody else thinks of an idea and I'm not offended by that.
Love the team collaboration and thank you as well for the acknowledgement of the partnership. We absolutely love working with your team, and you can see that real sense of authenticity, strong leadership, collaboration come right through your team. Anybody who's ever spoken about you holds you in such high regard for all of those characteristics. And I know Broadridge has won numerous awards for the best place to work, which is difficult in the category that you're in. You know, it's a tough space in the fintech space, but I commend you on that. When you compare starting off your journey in your career to starting a career today with all the technology that's available, are there things you think that you would fundamentally do different? Or do you feel like, regardless of your starting point, what took you there will still take you there?
Oh, well, thank you, by the way, for acknowledging our organization. When you work with Broadridge in an advisory role or consulting role or anything, you're part of us. And that's the way in which we embrace people because that's the way we're going to get the most out of them helping us. And you've been a great example of that. And you've come back for more. We've invited you back for more. I'm probably sure it's a mixture of that. Um, if I were starting today, I would be even more excited. I mean, I sort of have moments when I'm like, wow, if I was just 10 years younger, how
Right.
amazing. And the reason I think it's the greatest time ever is AI is like the most loyal pet and the smartest kid you always didn't like right next to you all the time. You know, that kid that was sort of, they were your friend, but they were a little annoying because they were so smart. And you were like, hmm. and they didn't try to rub it in your face, but they did. Well, AI can be like that right next to you.
Yeah.
And then there's the loyalty of your dog that's available, kisses you, that is just like so much love there. Like you have that right available to you. AI will serve you. You need to know how to leverage it
Mhm.
and use it, but I can be instantaneously smart by that little device that I carry around with me. And I believe some of my super strengths are around emotional quotient and the emotion of people. And right now I have every Harvard Business Review, every formula, even incredible insights through the large language models that exist in AI to help me be smarter than I actually am.
Mhm.
And the key then is to help people accomplish things by being able to leverage the intelligence I didn't have available next to me when I was going through my career. I didn't have a place to go and ask questions without anybody judging me about that's a stupid question, which I think is a problem. I have two granddaughters, and I love the intellectual curiosity of a 2-year-old. No one's told them, "Well, you didn't get that right." They haven't scored on a test yet.
Right.
So they wanna know everything. My
Yeah.
granddaughter last night was playing with my hair. She's like, "Papu," which is she calls me on Greek, and she says, "Where's your hair?" I don't really have much." That intellectual curiosity
Yeah.
and the unfiltering is what we all need, and you have available to you in artificial intelligence this tool
Mhm.
that can serve you. You cannot just simply trust it.
Mhm.
You have to really query it. You have to actually ask it questions. It will admit to you that it's sort of, well,
Mhm.
like some of your friends that would make stuff up.
Right.
So to me, this is a great time to start your career. It's a great time for people to really help each other understand how to navigate the strengths of each other.
Mhm.
Self-aware, that's why I say self-awareness is so
Mhm.
important. I know what I'm good at. I'm good at leading
Right.
people. I'm good at supporting people. I'm good at thinking about how they're feeling in them trying to get done what they're trying to get done. In
Mhm.
the end, it's still business problems.
Mhm.
So I'm looking for every reference point, including their thoughts and other people's thoughts, to help us solve big business problems in an industry that is incredibly challenged right now.
Absolutely. And Broadridge has been in this industry for 6 decades, arguably one of the most resilient and client trusted fintechs of our time. And I think at an expansive scale, also, you have over 10,000 companies that you support in 100 countries, and you're settling 15 trillion in tokenized and traditional securities daily, which is phenomenal with 15,000 employees. And really modernizing financial services is your DNA. So I imagine when AI is having its moment, you're having this realization that business is never going to be the same. But when did you get to the point where you realize the world is never going to be the same? And I imagine it was long before regular employees got access to ChatGPT and realized the power of the technology and the tools. You would have had an insight into quantum spatial computing, AI, agentic tech long before that. So was there a moment that you felt the world is never going to be the same, Broadridge is never going to be the same? Or were there moments that led to a here we are now and we're changed forever?
Well, the company's been on an extraordinary journey. Since being a public company in 2008, it's gone from being a fintech before anybody called things fintech,
Mhm.
in an environment where the global financial crisis was happening, and actually it was like, this isn't the best, water to be rising in because the financial services market in 2010, a year, 2009 was the crisis, was not a good time. And the company stock, which came around $20, went all the way down to below $10. And people were a little bit like, well, who's going to survive? The reality is, a horrible time is one of the best times to ever launch yourselves to the next level. And so we had spun from ADP, which is why you say, yes, we've been around for 60 years.
Mhm.
So being a trusted partner goes way back to even before being a public company.
Mhm.
Then in being a public company, we had to carry this on our shoulders with no parent. And we were a little bit, it was before my time, but from what I can tell from my colleagues, it was a little bit survival mode. And thankfully, when you basically have survival a little bit, it does focus minds,
Mhm.
and the company really was able to double down in its core. The difference of who we are today, some almost 20 years later, and that company is phenomenal. I
Right.
mean, the original market cap of the company was a couple of $1 billion. We've now been as high as 30 billion. We're about 22 billion right now, and we've grown to widen the service offering right in the sweet spot of what financial institutions needed,
Mhm.
which they needed a good partner to outsource critical capabilities that were non-differentiated. because they could put their money and investments into differentiated capability. And by the way, a lot of that time in regulatory. So we were freeing up capital to be available, an investment operating expense to be put into the things that would allow them to have their businesses grow. And we were able to bring a more mutualized or shared cost environment for critical capabilities, leading to this phenomenon you're talking about in terms of 15 trillion in settlements. That brings us a little bit to today, and where in that journey do we kind of wake up to this move? This is shifting yet again. The post-global financial crisis really came next in what we call the ABCDs of innovation. And we started this around 2017. So, some 8 years ago, artificial intelligence, blockchain, cloud, data, and digitization. Those were our things that we kind of woke up, and I said, look, we need these ABCDs figured out, because the beginnings of learning anything is your ABCDs and your one, two, threes. Let's learn about them. That launched an effort around distributed ledger technology, a blockchain capability, around repurchase agreements, repos. Repos are a very well and widespread used tool to finance operations and trading. Yet they're very a bit Neanderthalic in how they're done. They're like kind of paper and not very sophisticated, versus settling an equity trade is pretty efficient at these days. But we focused that technology on a problem. A lot of people were running around with the technology trying to find problems. No, we knew there was a problem, and we applied this technology. So that was the beginning of it. And sort of in that whole window from 2017 to now, cloud became ubiquitous. So there was a time back then when people were like, "Well, cloud, I don't know if I can just trust my data." Actually, you can trust your data with somebody who does that for a living better than you can do it yourself. So cloud moves reasonably quickly. You wanted to have a multimodal model as well, so you could offer deployed or cloud, and those still apply today. Um, uh, what wasn't big in 2017, 2018, 2019 was AI. It was more talked about. So our A in our ABCDs was the least present thing. And it wasn't until the OpenAI release in November of 23, I think it was, basically opened our eyes to it.
Right.
We had worked on little bits and bobs, but I would say most of those things were sort of automation of macros and things. They weren't really AI. We kind of talked about them that way.
Mhm.
Then AI came to fruition. So we immediately had KPIs deployed for all associates in the 15,000 person company, that everybody had to have an AI KPI for their objectives for the year.
Mhm.
And that got people to be familiar with AI. We created, I remember the arguments in the beginning, well, can we make it available? I'm like, if you don't make it available, only the bad people will have it. It's like, how would you like to not have a defensible weapon when somebody else has a weapon?
Absolutely.
AI is the answer. Technology and AI is the answer to a lot of the problems. So we were thoughtful enough to put together some standards, parameters, our own environment of AI that was very internalized control. Nothing would go outside the walls that was proprietary information or PPI information. And that's been a great launching point for us to continue and carry on the AI. And I think we were ahead of that.
Right.
I will tell you that it's perpetual. There are now days where I'm feeling like we're behind. We need to do more. And I think to some degree it's the amount of disruptive AI happening.
Right.
If you just come up with a name, Sarah.ai, and you launch your company, people are going to go, well, what do you know about AI? And you can come in and talk about anything. So it is very hard to distill who's actually doing meaningful things in AI
Yeah.
compared to what we're doing, and who do we want to partner with, because we know we can't do everything.
Absolutely.
No one can do everything. So finding the right partners to make sure that we continue to stay ahead of the curve is a key element of where we are today.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I see in the role that I'm in, which is overseeing education technology across businesses, is that there is this disconnect between businesses that have brought in tools and technology for their employees, and then employees being unclear about how they use that tools, technology in their role, in their workflow, and in their future value. And I think there's this incredible opportunity right now to help to allow or to enable employees to be co-designers of the future of work. And you see this in a very favorable way, in that you're guiding large form digital tech transformations within organizations whose employees are also feeling that potential resistance, uncertainty, lack of clarity around how they use tools and technology in their workflow, how they design for their future value. And you also mentioned you have your 15,000 employee base where you've also enabled them with the tools and technology. So, what becomes your North Star or guiding framework that you can use to really guide your customer base, employee base, and your own internal teams to really be able to navigate this time of great opportunity, but also a little bit of lack of clarity on, like, well, how
Mhm.
do I go about using these tools?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. You can't go a day without a podcast on
Mm,
AI good, AI bad.
right.
The reality is, I'm sure in 1906 or something, people were really worried about the carbon vehicle
Mm,
and the Model T that Henry Ford created. That was probably scary. And the buggy whip people kept making their buggy whips and didn't realize that they weren't going to really be needed anymore. So I think that's a perpetual element of history and society, and people get scared.
yeah.
And people are nervous about all this. My view on that is you need to be very transparent. People can reinvent themselves with information.
Mhm,
And we've been very clear about making it part of their work environment with the
mm,
KPIs that we established now, 3+ years ago. We are also telling people that our business, our company, and our clients are going to change through AI, and that we need to be part of making up we need to be the ones defining where that's going.
mhm.
If we sit back, we become victim to that, and that's as an
Yeah.
employee, as a company, as an industry. It's as however you want to
Mm,
frame it out. And so what's the answer to all that is literally be as informative as you possibly can, as transparent as you can, give as much opportunity for people to deploy it in their daily workflow. Um, and not make it the villain.
mm,
I do believe that there are parameters that need to be either adhered to or enabled. I don't think the regulators or government are going to figure that out for us.
no.
I think we have to figure out how we enable it to make our lives easier and better.
Mhm,
And we're training those people and reinventing their careers
mhm,
when AI, which will naturally get in the way of the current job some people do.
mhm,
I did some remarks last year in India with sort of in a conference that Modi was at, and the Indian Prime Minister, and I had said India has the greatest opportunity, the greatest risk. A
mhm.
lot of what the last 20 years of India's expansive growth has been is outsourcing, offshoring.
Yeah.
And those things can now be done in AI. So can you reinvent yourself? And we're reinventing our own 5,000 person offshore locations around the world to give them these AI tools, ideally make them more efficient. And if you put the tools in their hands, they'll figure out how to
Mhm,
make it more efficient, maybe even recognize that this is going to eliminate my role. What can I do more?
mhm,
It's our job to make sure we're showing them paths to other things
mhm,
and reinvention and retraining, because we want to continue to grow,
mhm.
and we will need people. We will need human intelligence
Of course.
to be able to drive the benefits of artificial
Mhm,
intelligence, return that to our clients in the form of a dividend of innovation,
mhm,
a dividend of cost effectiveness, a dividend of risk reduction.
mhm,
That's what AI is. And to me, the playing field is wide open for people who can manage their fear
mhm.
and make their futures. It's our job as an employer of choice to help them find that path.
Absolutely. And I think what you're really encouraging in people is to have an entrepreneurial mindset. If I think about the roles and the careers that have the greatest risk, where you're fully accountable in your chosen path in your career is when you've decided to found something and launch it into the world. And so you quite quickly become a person who becomes very skilled at like tapping into the available resources around you. There's comfort when you're in a big 15,000 person organization or in the companies that you support also. Like there's comfort in the numbers, but there can also be confusion there where you're like, oh, I have to figure out how to figure out this matrix of resources and capabilities within the business to figure out where I sit in. I think, a framework that you had mentioned to me was around create, which felt like, oh, I can really understand that and get my hands around it. Can you speak a little bit about where that model came from
Yeah,
and the
absolutely.
success of it?
Uh, our company has such a treasured history of investing in our people
Mm,
and the culture. And people talk about culture and how important it is. Of course it is. It's people, right? The people culture is the people working together. And we've had a number of generations of that evolution. Our latest is create as the acronym.
mhm,
You mentioned two of the words that are in the create, entrepreneurial and accountability.
mhm,
But let me back up and just say when we talk to 15,000 people, we talk to them about this acronym create. So that's customer centric.
mhm,
It is respected. It is engaged, it is accountable, it is trusted, and it is entrepreneurial. And so that's create, and we live those values as part of how we enable confidence in our associates that they will find a future, because humans are fearful of the unknown and the uncertain, and we are in probably one of the most uncertain times. I'm sure that people have said that always, because there have been eras that are perpetually uncertain. But right now we have geopolitical things going on that we have not ever really seen. We have technology moving at a pace that no one's ever been able, no one's ever seen this pace. You mentioned quantum earlier. Quantum's coming in about 18 months, 24 months. 30 months, not much more than that. And that's going to take AI to a whole nother level of the way in which the computing power is going to explode in terms of what it's going to be capable of doing. And today, my message to people is make sure you're working closely with AI and figuring out a way for it to be omnipresent in your life, in your personal life as well, because it's pretty cool to go, I'm going to ask chat, or the way in which Claude can now program code for you as an architect. Think of, you're in your home, it's got white walls, you just moved in, what do I want to do with it? It's a designer available to you. So when you go to Claude and you say, I want to write a program that deduplicates my contact duplications, it'll do that for you. So everyone has the power, in effect, to code capability sets, or to ask it to, what would you design? Here are my favorite colors, and here's the number of windows that are in my living room. And so this is so powerful. You can bring it to your human life, you can bring it to your work life, you can bring it to your career development. It can help be your GPS for career evolution. These are the things I like to do. Here are two roles of people that are more senior than me that I have an ambition to potentially do. What would you suggest I read, listen to, do it? It's just this powerful tool available to you, and Create enables our people to control their destiny.
Absolutely love that. So you lead revenue, profit, and growth strategy and international expansion for Broadridge. I want to talk a little bit about how you think about supporting and building the talent of the sales team, particularly new hires, within a tech-enabled environment, because arguably technology sales implementation has become more complex. There's greater pressure on new hire sales teams, reducing ramp time and getting to their first deal faster. Do you have any guidance or any strategies that you're using internally at Broadridge that you feel have worked particularly well for your new hire sales team?
Yeah. We really have to have well-rounded sales professionals today. And when I mean well-rounded, I mean, first of all, you have to be good communicators. Um, that's one of the things I think is lost in the world of AI a little bit, is we still have to get people to do things. And the better communicator you are, whether that's written, verbal, the more you are in your ability to influence. Social media is a big influencer when you're selling all kinds of retail type things, but we're in an institutional environment. What can we learn from social media and influencing that we can apply as individuals? So one of the elements of being well-rounded is great communication skills. The second one is more of a sophistication of being able to understand our client's business. I think that we have a lot of experts around that can be helpful to you, but the more credible you can be in understanding our client's business, the more you can challenge the client, because status quo is easiest. Um, People don't generally get fired for status quo. They also don't get promoted for status quo. So when you start thinking about reinvention, and that word that I don't particularly like, but there's not another one I've been able to come up with, transformation. So it's a word I don't like, because transformation to me is a set of evolutionary changes that are planned, and in some cases improvised or course corrected along a journey to a better state. And you don't just press the transformation button and it just happens. And in fact, what I've seen is when people start talking about the transformation button concept, it creates so much edginess. People start to really get uncomfortable with that. So my view is you build step by step on a path to improvement. And that has to align with the way in which the world's changing. So I really believe individuals who are in tune to what our clients are going through are really well positioned to help them, and therefore make good candidates. I think the third one is really a combination of understanding technology and the financial services marketplace, the fintech space, if you will. So those three legs of the stool, I think, fit really, really well. The first one's the most important, though. We have to be able to communicate with each other. If we're going to rely on text as the way to sell things, I don't know. I don't think texts or emails are what sells things. I think people are what gets that done. And I don't believe that's threatened by AI. It's supported by AI, and there might even be agentic capabilities that are going to help that sales process. There certainly are agentic capabilities that help the target audiences and improve the pools you fish in. But to date, I haven't seen the agentic salesperson that's taken the place of our very knowledgeable deep salesperson. We have used agentic capabilities to help train them better on different types of questions, the ability to handle objections. These are the kind of tools that companies like yours work to help make our people arm much better, because the buyer is so much more sophisticated now, because they have agentic tools to go ask all kinds of questions about and get really good insights versus being educated by the salesperson.
Absolutely. And you bring up a really good point in communication. I think the layer ahead of communication is something that you refer to early on in your career and with your granddaughter, and that's around curiosity. So I think perhaps what I see sometimes is that you can be an incredible communicator. You can really thoroughly understand your client and understand their pain point. But if you're not continuously curious about why what you're communicating isn't landing, or why what your client is looking for is still a challenge for them, and asking those questions, I think sometimes we fall short of the potential of a human in the loop of sales conversations. And I agree. I think that in time in the future, agents will communicate with each other. If I need something, my agent is going to figure it out with your agent, and we won't even need to have a conversation, but at the same time, we will. And the conversations that we'll be having will be different. They'll be evolved. They'll have already got the
They'll be the
baseline.
most important ones.
Yes, they'll be the most important
Yeah,
ones.
intellectual curiosity is the most powerful thing. And the great thing about AI next to intellectual curiosity is I don't have to feel stupid. I can ask AI a question now. It's going to give me like, oh, okay. I actually remember learning about that when I was in business school or something. It's bringing it back. Now I have this expert next to me, and it does lead to the name of your company and intuition, because you do want to have intuition when you're engaging with someone, especially if you're trying to get them to do something that you want them to do. Ideally, as in why I think I've been in part successful in the career I've chosen or landed in and wondered what I was going to ever do. And 40 years later, I'm doing it and I've done it reasonably well. Is I've always wanted to have the intuition of what is the other person trying to do and achieve. And if I can be helpful to them in doing that, that's great. Intellectual curiosity helps it. Now AI helps it. Experiences are invaluable and all that. Mix that together, and I like the odds of success.
Absolutely. And even mimicking experiences, like there's such power now in technology with VR to be able to give the experience that is far beyond your years of experience on the job, that really like sets you up for success in the future as a salesperson. I want to lastly talk about we've just finished the quarter and earnings across multiple different companies and financial services, and the tone has somewhat changed. Credit is stable. I think deposits and consumer spending suggests resilience, and even private credit isn't the top agenda of concern across management companies in finance. But what has shifted is this tone around cybersecurity in particular. And now that we've enabled our teams, evolved our business models to be agentic, that we've also introduced the number one vulnerability that could potentially take down business completely, and that's in data security and privacy. You're obviously perfectly positioned to support because of the work that you do in governance security, and you really create the infrastructure to embed and support trust. So what advice would you give to companies to build in the resilience and to think ahead in terms of you're enabling your employees, but you're also giving a point of weakness in some respects, and an access point for the technology to be taken advantage of in some respects?
Yeah. We are in a world that is quite scary.
Yeah.
And it's obviously scary in physical harm, and that's why a protected workplace is so important. We've seen the world go through horrible dynamics, and I have faith that the human will come out in the world. Moving to this other threat, which is the invisible threat, but there as an omnipresent, perpetual effect, is these cyber criminals who are attacking society at its most vulnerable places. And as individuals, consumers, we're exposed to that all the time. Uh, at Broadridge, what we do is step back, and we have a mantra that is trusted and transformative. What does that mean? It basically means that we're going to provide complete transparency into the way we invest immensely in the security of capabilities when you're settling trades, when you're providing governance and communications to all investors around the world. That is a very big responsibility, and we take that with the highest of intent to ensure that we are protecting investors. That's important. We are enabling and protecting. That's why the transformative is so important. Because if all you did was lock down, then you couldn't compete in the marketplace. And the human, the consumer, the institutions we serve can innovate. So you really have to have this combination of trusted and transformative. So we invest immensely in our cybersecurity. We show that to the biggest institutions on the street with complete open look information. We actually partner with many of them to come up with tools that will protect us. We work with a couple of the largest institutions on the street to create an immutable and repave tool set. So if there is a compromise, we can bring things back in seconds versus in some cases we've seen vulnerabilities take days to recover from. And this is in almost insatiable need for us to be at the forefront of, because the amount of risk is I guess you'd say incalculable. People talk about how risk and compliance are expensive. They are very expensive,
Yeah.
but being compromised is infinitely expensive. It could take an entire business down. So we try to find the right way to balance the investments we make to protect the investor, to protect our client institutions, to protect our institution. And we try to do that with transparency to our trusted clients, and they help us get better at that. Education is very important in that.
Yeah.
CISOs have now become chief information security officers, have become in effect almost as important, well, maybe as important as CFOs, CROs, executive officers, because if you are taken to your knees by a vulnerability
Yeah.
and a ransomware request, you forget about talking about sales and earnings. Even when you're having them on a call, people won't understand what's happening in your business. So we really take that very, very seriously. We want to protect the industry as a whole, because if something happens, the people walking around the street, no matter what institution they see, they question it. So we all have an obligation to work together and with government to be protecting the investor.
We certainly do. 3 rapid fire questions.
Okay.
What is keeping you up at night? If it's not cybersecurity.
Well, cybersecurity keeps us up all day long. When we finally put our head on the pillow, I think, to me, the ability for us to keep up with that pace of change and drive the pace of change. Do you know, sometimes you feel like, wow, the world's moving really, really quickly. Are we doing enough?
Yeah.
And are we doing the right things?
Yeah.
And that is a little bit schizophrenic in the idea of, I think we are, but I'm always, I have this like constructive or healthy paranoia about, are we keeping up with all this? And when you go look at tokenization and the way in which the industry is transferring what will be assets that are on chain, are we moving fast enough on that? And these are the things that I do stay awake thinking about. I do think we're doing really well at it, but it's perpetual.
Yeah. I think your model of customers first helps with that, though, because we're all in this loop of we can actually see the future state because of understanding of what tech can enable. So I find myself designing for a future state that is quite perfect. But the reality is today, in the day to day, even though there's this big story that's unfolding, the day to day is still largely manageable. And it is, we're being progressive in those day to day moments. So I think the create model that you have really supports that. Something that you're
And you can't ignore that the present is a
Yes.
part of the future.
Absolutely.
And today we settle 15 trillion trades that are analog, and in the future they will all probably be tokenized. We will be part of that journey,
Yeah.
versus a bunch of people that are out there disrupting, thinking the future is in an insecure digital crypto type world. That's not very
They don't have
transparent.
access to, yeah.
So that is part of, like, we need to get there, and we need to be part of getting there. We need to be the ones who create where that is with new disruptive capabilities and technologies.
I love what you're doing because you're really democratizing investment for everybody. What are you most looking forward to in a snapshot
I'm looking
or
forward
excited about?
to the way in which we can have a 7/24, 365 trading environment that is both safe. Remember, it's not I don't know, it's not cash just going from your phone to another phone. Like, there's complex securities with T's and C's and things underneath those that has to be done in a thoughtful way. Just saying we're going to settle a complex derivative transaction instantaneously, that doesn't really contemplate things in the way in which they work. But I am a believer that moving to atomic settlement, which is instantaneous or near instantaneous, depending upon asset, is an objective. I'm very excited about what that means for the future of investing, the velocity of investing, the amount of reduction in cost, the benefit to investors. I'm also cautious about the risk it takes because people might move so fast they might not understand what they're doing, and that could create a lot of risk for them.
Absolutely. There's a price to be paid for instant gratification.
This
Let's
is
put it
true.
that
We
way.
all know that it's the counter when we buy that
I
magazine
know.
at $6 when we could actually just get it sent to us for $1.
Yeah, 100%. And if you were to do it all over again, if anything, would you change anything?
Oh, I changed lots of things
Okay.
because I'm that much smarter, but I wouldn't change where I am and
Mm-hmm.
kind of how I got there. But people say that to me all the time. Well, would you change anything? Of course, I would do things very differently on some levels because I have experience today that I never had years ago, and I wouldn't ignore that. But what's most important is you have three tools to make decisions. You have your brain and your intellect. You have your heart and your passion, and you have your gut and your instincts. And I am much better at using those three things today than I was when I was younger. And that's important. When you buy something and you get change back, it's important to use your intellectual sense to count that change back. When you decide who you're going to spend your life with, it's important to use that passion and your heart around that. But when you have to figure out a difficult business situation, you want to use gut instinct because it brings together hundreds of experiences you've had in daily life, along with your intelligence and your passion, because passion can power you. That's what I would use a little bit differently if I were to do it over again.
And that, what you have just described, is the most technically advanced system in the world that yet, as humans, we don't really understand that heart, mind, gut connection. And I think my hope is that with AI advancement in tech, that we become more in tune with our natural instincts and abilities, because what you've described is essentially something that comes natural to you, but that you've been trained towards. I hope in the future that that's just something that's built in from the beginning and that we understand it more because of technology taking care of some of the production work of work, that we'll work on ourselves in that way. So, Chris, thank you so much for your time. You've been very generous. I think that your leadership speaks volumes in terms of how I see it through the teams that we engage with and the work that you do. And thank you for giving a little bit of an insight into your world here today with me.
Well, sir, thank you so much. And thank you to you and your team and intuition and what you do to help us be successful. We have a long future ahead of solving problems. And definitely, if you take one thing away, the human intelligence is not dead. It's in fact even stronger because it has tools now that can make it smarter on the little things. In the end, use those tools.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.